Welcome inside another episode of Point to the Passer. Jonathan, it has been since December since we've been on, so we want to apologize to the fans and our audience that it's been a minute, but we are back and it is a new era of college basketball at Carolina. A whole lot going on. We're going to cover everything. Obviously, the Coach Malone hiring. We're going to get into the current roster. We're going to get into the transfer portal. But really, first, just a quick check-in. How you doing, man? It's been a busy few months for both of us. What's good?
I'm doing well, Craig. It's good to be back on with you and kind of get back into the rhythm of things here. Definitely been a
For sure.
busy time for both of us, but yeah, excited to be talking about a new era of Carolina basketball. And as much as I love March Madness and the Final Four and all of that, the portal opening right after the Final Four is just the promise of the new season, and so that's exciting and a good time for us to get back on and start recording more consistently again. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. The last time we checked in was mid-December. Times have changed now. We all know what happened. We all know how everything went down. It's been a bit of a search process to land on Coach Malone. It felt like every time we tried to get on, it was either something in our personal lives or we were just deflated ultimately by the Caleb Wilson injury of like we were ready to get on for March, do the podcast, make a little run, be back, and Caleb gets injured. And I was just like, man, I don't know. Like, not to be a fair weather fan, I was still there cheering, but it was hard to motivate to say, yeah, let's start putting out some more episodes. So we kind of did a reset, just enjoyed March Madness for what it was. What was your takeaways in March as a whole? Did you get to watch a lot of the first round games?
I watched a decent amount of the first round. I mean, there were some great games. It felt like one of those tournaments that we'll look back and remember definitely the Duke UConn game and the Braylon Mullen shot that will be
My
played
goodness, I have a story
forever.
about that later.
So we can get to that, but even that who did Kentucky play? Kentucky Santa Clara first round game that
Yeah.
was wild with Otega Owe hitting a half court shot after a go ahead shot
Yeah.
from Santa Clara to tie it and send it to overtime. There were a good amount of just dramatic finishes. Even that Siena Duke game in the first round to have Siena
Oh my
have the biggest
gosh. Yeah.
lead of a 16 over a one. So there were some fun games, some fun upsets. High Point being one of those teams, and that Wisconsin game was also wild.
Yeah.
So it was I'd say like a typical March Madness tournament first weekend where you get a lot of excitement, even if we have fewer of the double digit seeds advancing.
Yeah, so we at least were able to enjoy that first half of Thursday. I was able to watch with some friends of mine, and obviously, like a lot of the excitement around High Point getting the last second shot over Wisconsin was cool. The number 99, forgot his name right now, but scoring the only two of his career to go ahead or tie the game there late. So yeah, pretty cool first round games there, and then UNC has its meeting with VCU, and looking back now, we all know what happened. But man, that we were rocking and rolling, got up 19, and then the whole kind of world of Carolina basketball just changed in about the next hour or so. What's your vibe on the last couple of weeks? I just want to check in with you. We obviously have a lot of things moving with the portal, with Coach Malone coming in, with the search process in general. And I know ever since Hubert got let go, we have been in constant contact of who do we want this to be? What are the markets like? Who are we going to land on? How can we afford a buyout with the football situation? There are so many angles to get into. So let me just get kind of a heat check on how we're feeling about Coach Malone today, maybe compared to how you were feeling initially when he was announced, and who your hopes were kind of before that.
So I maybe not as fired up as I was on Monday when the news broke. Just the way the process played out, and I get that it's different when you're a fan and you're hearing the news come out. And you don't have all the behind the scenes of what the process was, but I was disappointed with the way the process played out in terms of not disappointed where we started. I thought that Tommy Lloyd, in my opinion, that should have been the top target, and
Hmm.
we went after him hard. Listened to Ovius and Giglio, their podcast with OG Media. They had Brendan Marks on yesterday or the day before, recapping the timeline of how everything went with this process. And Brendan was saying that while we won't necessarily know exactly how close Tommy was in terms of making the move to UNC, it did feel serious. It did feel like it was something he was considering, especially given that it took till Friday before the Final Four for the extension to come out.
Hmm.
And apparently, according to Brendan, uh, Arizona offered their final offer. Tommy said no, and they said, "Wait, hold on. Here's our final offer." And I think that was probably that piece that we saw with him now reporting not to the AD but likely the president, which is
Yeah,
just unheard of in terms of the structure of the way
completely
college
unprecedented.
athletics is set
Yeah.
up. So all that to say, they offered him whatever it was going to take to get him to stay, and ultimately he did. And I don't fault him for that. I don't fault Carolina for going after him the way they did. I think it was the right move.
Hmm.
Um, you could argue, and we don't know for sure, right? There wasn't an official offer on the table. That's not the way things work. Matt Norlander with CBS reporting that they had, in principle, an offer to make him the second highest paid coach behind Bill Self, which is what turns out also Michael Malone's being paid second behind Bill Self as well.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know what the financial situation is if they were at their limit, but I'd say do whatever you can. If you make him the highest paid coach, go get Tommy Lloyd. I'm not sure that even that would have ultimately moved the needle, but um, so again, hard to really argue with that part of the process. For me, it was then how they went through the rest of the list, and Billy Donovan obviously was a big name and talked about quite a bit. He, for whatever reason, was very set on this idea of finishing the season with the Bulls, the last 4 games or so. So that would be April 12th. He would end his season. You'd have to wait. That's just too long. You can't wait that long with the
The
portal
portal window
opening
is
up.
shorter now too. It's 2 weeks, not 30 days. So that's half the time.
Exactly. And that's just for players to jump into the portal, but we know that by the time they jump into the portal, a lot of times they already even have a destination of where they're going to go.
Right.
So you
Right.
couldn't wait. UNC had a sense of urgency there. I think I would say if they had gotten assurances from Donovan that no, I'm going to take it and I'm committed to this. This is where I want to be. Then I think you could wait if he really was set on that, as long as he was definitely taking the job on the 12th, and then you play catch up in the portal from there. But for him to still be a maybe at that point, you couldn't wait for him. So I agree with that decision too. You had to move on from him. So they're pivoting. The piece that I don't agree with is they had other college coaches that are rising stars in the industry. Those are some of the guys I think you go harder after at that point, specifically Mark Byington at Vanderbilt. And he felt like somebody who realistically was going to take it or would be likely to take the position if offered. I get that he just had an extension too. There's a significant buyout, but I think he, in my opinion, had proven enough with Vanderbilt, with JMU before that, and even I think he was at Georgia Southern before that. He had shown enough, in my opinion, to take a chance on him as like a Dusty May 2.0, that type of coach who's rising up the ranks. So that's
Hmm.
what I would like to have seen in terms of the process, given that their goal was to get a college coach, experienced college coach, proven college coach. That's really what they were looking for first and foremost. And they did, obviously, with Lloyd and May as their top two targets. But then to pivot to Michael Malone, and there are questions of when they pivoted to him because he talked about in his press conference saying no multiple times as well.
Hmm.
So anyway, that's the part that I'm still upset with. In terms of the outcome, we can talk more about Coach Malone and what I'm thinking there. But yeah, so twists and turns, it happened fast and slow. It feels like all at the same time, but a whirlwind over the last 2 weeks or so of this playing out.
Yeah, absolutely. The way we've heard Coach described and kind of how we'll put it is he's a good X's and O's guys. He obviously has the experience in basketball as the game itself, winning a championship with the Nuggets. 20 years in the in NBA as an assistant coach slash scout plus head coach for about 10 years with the Nuggets. My thing is the college game has changed so much, and you and I have talked about this off mic a good bit, that it's high risk, high reward because you have to build the system around him, even if he is a really good X's and O's coach. Um, the nature of the game has changed. So is it more valuable to get a guy like Byington who can come up through the ranks? You look at Dusty May, of course, like you compared and we talked about, only 2 years at Michigan. Before that, he wasn't at a major program. He was at Florida Atlantic, and so Michigan took their shot at him. They saw that he's like a little mini Brad Stevens right now in the way he's performing, and they invested in it, and it's paid off as of just a couple of days ago to the biggest extent. I'm kind of 50-50 on whether Michael Malone's the right move over a guy like Byington, and I think by the nature of just not knowing and the pressure around the situation, I don't know if that number is going to change. I'm kind of going to be 50-50 until the season starts. And I could have been 50-50 on Byington because I could have seen Byington get hired and then say, "Oh, well, he's not proven." Then the conversation is, "Well, you should have gotten a championship coach like Billy Donovan." It's like there's always the other angle of it, and so I kind of was heated on Monday when I heard that news as well, and the group chat was popping off, and I it was coming from two different places. One, I just didn't know much about this guy. And so I was like, who the heck is Michael Malone and why is he your head coach? I'm just not that invested in NBA. I don't watch it. I watch the college game a lot more. And so I had to really educate myself instead of jump into, the first 5 or 10 hot takes of Carolina basketball's doomed. Why did we hire this guy? So I was like, first of all, let me slow down a little bit, do my due diligence and research, and then let him do his introductory press conference. And that happened yesterday, Wednesday, April 8th. We're recording here on the 9th. And I was really impressed. I like what he had to say about balancing the Carolina family, about his approach to the game. He's very aware that it's a changing landscape. He's very aware that he needs to lean into building staff, make sure he doesn't miss on the portal, and stay in communication with the current team. Those are his top three priorities right now. Speaking with Jones and Adam on their show yesterday, and he just seems to really care about the job, and he wants to be back in the locker room, is what he said. He wants to be that guy who brings the energy and helps these kids develop. And so I'm ready for that kind of energy on the sidelines. Hubert did a lot of things well. He was never the most overly energetic coach. If he wasn't, stomping on the sidelines at his team, he was kind of, a little bit more in terms of personality, just a little more low key. And I think having this fire back for the team, for the fan base, I think is a good direction to go. Plus all the rest of it, in terms of he seems like a high IQ guy. His daughter plays volleyball at Carolina, and so he's got that personal tie. Sounds like he wants to be here, and that ultimately everything can hopefully come together as a good fit. But I think that the next couple weeks are going to be telling. If we rushed to make sure this hire happened and we've now landed on him just in time for the portal, I need to see some portal action. I need to see it quick because if you're going to rush on a guy, and it needs to be the right guy, and he needs to start making those moves. So even on the pod with Adam and Jones the other day, he was saying, I think Sean May's waiting for me to get in his office so we can get this thing going.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a
yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at with the whole thing. It was a process. There's no one out there, none of you listening, me, Jonathan, even people at UNC know the right answer. So I think you just got to kind of roll with it, support them, and we'll see how this first season goes.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it's an expensive experiment, right? Because he's a former NBA coach and at the level he
Yep.
was getting paid. I mean, to me, there are not a lot of similarities with the Belichick hiring, and I get the
No,
proximity
that
of the
was the
timing
initial
of this,
trigger
right?
of my
Yeah,
reaction and others, but yeah,
yeah. But you do have to pay him uh, as one of the top coaches in college, in part because he was getting paid more when he was in the NBA, and
yep,
there are folks out there. I think a good amount of folks felt like he shouldn't necessarily have been fired when he was. It wasn't a performance related thing as
right,
much as it was the way things had deteriorated relationship wise within the
mhm,
organization at that point.
right, right,
That's a whole other conversation, but I think the parallels with Belichick are obviously NBA coach who doesn't have college head coaching experience coming in. He's also out of a job, fired out of a job when he takes the UNC job. To me, that's really where the comparisons end
hmm,
because
agreed,
you've seen from the the media that he's done, whether it was the press conference, like you said, or the podcast or other things, he's got a lot of energy and he wants to be back in coaching, and it sounded like he was set on taking another NBA job, and then was convinced by the leadership at UNC and guys like Sean May and others, Antoine Jameson, but it sounded like especially Steve Newmark was one making the hire, that after he was told, Newmark was told no, he kept coming back to him. And so I think that part is, it doesn't feel like he's just taking this job to take a job. It felt like, well, he said, and so we'll believe this to be true unless we proven
Hmm.
otherwise, that UNC was the only college job he was going to take. He was going to take a college job, and
Hmm.
this is the type of position that's once in a lifetime. You're not, if you say no this time, there's not probably going to be another opportunity. Uh,
Yep.
so all those things are exciting because I think it does feel like he's hit the ground running. He's very invested. He understands this is way bigger than just himself, and he's taking that responsibility really seriously.
One of the things that I had talked about briefly originally when we were looking at head coaches was the fact that this job has not truly been open, so to speak, in 70 plus years because it was always going to be in the family. And so then it became evident that you're going to go outside the family. And that's where my high hopes for guys like Dusty May and Tommy Lloyd came in. If you're familiar with Kentucky and what happened to them last year, they landed on Mark Pope, who has done an okay job, but he was not their first choice, and they were also missing on big names. So this to me was kind of a test scenario of is Carolina basketball still able to pull from these other programs? And the fact that Tommy Lloyd said no, and granted that little AD piece is a nice little nugget when you don't have to report to a boss, so to speak. That got him to stay, but he turned down a lot of money, and it wasn't like he was jumping at being the first coach outside of the family at Carolina. However, it seems like that did spark Michael Malone's interest in being the only college job. So the that he wanted. The brand I think is still able to pull some of the guys, and I do think it seems like to me based on his press conference and some of the conversations and some of the transparency that Steve Newmark provided on this whole process that if he wasn't going to take another college job, he wanted to be at Carolina or nowhere else. And to me, that says a good amount about the brand that it is still there. It may not have gotten the top two guys from another college program to come over, which kind of makes sense. I mean, they're both sitting at the top of their game right now. But you get a guy who is proven as a NBA champion and has decades of experience and says, if I'm going to go coach college, I'm going to go to Carolina. So I think we do still kind of have that pull. And I think what ultimately did it was probably I'm going to be the first one outside the family. And this is another kind of career legacy chance. And he wants to leave a mark. So I think that angle of it is important and pretty cool and hopefully going to serve as a driver for him.
I agree, and he's not that much older than guys like May and Lloyd too, right? So that's the other piece where you're not getting a coach like I don't intend this to be all about being negative on the football hiring of Belichick, and that still has to play out. Belichick, obviously, in his early 70s, and
Yep.
somebody like Malone being in his early 50s, he's at a different stage in his career as well. Um, yeah, there's been a lot of, there will be more just dissecting the process of the decision. I think from the national standpoint, or even other fan bases or reporters of from beat beat writers from places like Arizona or others who were very involved in this from their side. Uh, getting the They were talking a lot about just the fallback of, okay, if UNC wasn't able to land their top choices, what does that mean about the brand, right? What does that mean about where their status as a blue blood, or even just the draw of being a blue blood at this point? And I'm with you. I think it's complicated, right? I think it's we haven't seen this play out at Duke. It would be interesting. I don't think it will. With Shire, seems like he's been there for a long time.
He did
But if
blow
they
a
went through
19
this,
point lead, so he should probably be let go.
yeah, well, that we can discuss that. I'd be happy to discuss that. I don't want to completely take this over as a Duke hate podcast, but
Yeah.
we'll have time for that later. Um, but you think about it. You said Kentucky. I think Kansas is another good example that maybe they're the one with Bill Self. It's so long ago now when he took that position when Roy came to UNC, but um, they got somebody from an Illinois who had been established at that point to go to Kansas. So, but it just doesn't happen that often. I think it's complicated, right? Like you said,
Hmm.
um, if you make that move, there's a lot of pressure. There's a chance it doesn't work out, And with Lloyd, for example, he's now got everything he wants the way he wants to do it in Arizona. He's built this thing the way, and he can keep pushing it. And he doesn't have the same level of pressure that he would if he came to Carolina starting over. And you have that microscope on you the way we know that it's going to be. So I think that's part of it more so than does the brand have it's the same pull. I think we can have a bigger conversation about the impact of the last 5 to 7 years or so in terms of the program and the trajectory. But having somebody like Malone coming in, you could just get from his presence, from his the way that he is just very comfortable being in those conversations with some of the big alumni, the big names, and doesn't really seem like he's flustered by much. He's very poised, very polished. So that to me, I mean, I think that's also a positive thing. And it feels like I'm optimistic for that part of it, of him coming in. And yes, he's got the X's and O's piece that's been talked about a lot. He's an expert in that area, but he also has the personality of somebody who he doesn't really seem like he gets very ruffled. That he's poised. I mean, he's gonna let you know how he feels and be emotional, but so that piece I think is really positive too, and I think he has a chance then to bring that program back, bring the program back up to closer to the standard that we've known for so long.
Yeah, totally agree. Like I said, I really liked his energy. And you're right though. I mean, 50 million for 6 years is a very pricey contract, and not to mention if you end the contract before you owe him 80%. So we're looking at, I'm not a math major, but 40 million.
Yeah.
And so combine that with the questions around the football program and your two major revenue sports. And if things don't go well, that gets to be pretty concerning financially for the department. And it's already in a place where it's not not exactly where it should be. Um, I think there's some conversations around obviously the renovations and location of the Dean Dome. I don't know if this necessarily directly affects it, but my gut reaction when I saw that number was, well, here's your Dean Dome at Carolina North because they're going to have to pull revenue from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a one for one, but that'll be an interesting discussion. Once all this head coach talk settles down, that's something else that's been going in the background since we've been uh, off air a little bit. Those conversations have been all over the place. There's been news that has come out about it, about how former players feel, about how the communications breakdown happened, how it was basically planned and then backtracked and now put on pause. It's just, there's so many moving parts in the athletics department as a whole. But just going back to the head coach part, I think I'm not going to say they nailed it because nailing it would be getting Dusty May or Tommy Lloyd, but I think they nailed it to the extent of what's in their control.
I think it was a really good pivot. They had to move fast. They had to pivot quickly, and it was a really good pivot. I can probably not the only one, although I think I may even be in the minority of having Byington higher on my list of like go to him next.
Hmm.
But I think it's hard to argue with the way they pivoted and how they did it. Um, and so that part to me, I think is positive that they because look if they went down the list to some of these guys first um, before taking a swing at Lloyd and even May, calling Brad Stevens, having him tell you no, all those things, people would have been understandably upset. And so I think
Hmm.
they did the right thing in that regard. It didn't work out, but and then they were able to pivot, and it's a big risk, but we'll see how that ultimately plays out too over time. Um, I think in terms of just what makes me more cautiously optimistic now is the fact that the things he's talking about, he really seems to understand a lot of things, multiple things, I'd say, in terms of Carolina basketball, the history, but also where we've been as a program and where we need to go. Because he
Hmm.
spoke about things in terms of accountability, in terms of building trust and trusting your players, trusting your staff, uh, even the style of play, types of things that he talked about, grinding, hardworking, being aggressive in how they're going to play. All of those things are things that we really need. And accountability has been a big question that's come up over the Hubert Davis tenure. Um, and so that's something that to me is not a concern with Malone. I think my concern would be he's an intense guy, and can he, does it get to a point where he loses some players because of that intensity? That will be a line that he's going to have to navigate. That's different than being in the pros, where now you have parents, some that are very involved, whether it be social media or in person, any number of things, and so that's a different dynamic. And he is a old school coach in a lot of ways in terms of how he a guy from New York City and how he
Hmm.
communicates and his toughness and those types of things. But part of that is back to other things we've talked about a lot, which is identity. And he gave a very clear vision for what the identity of his coaching philosophy, his teams would be, and the types of players that he looks for. So if you get guys that their identity is built around toughness and grit, um, and guys that are going to keep coming back to the gym and they're going to pick themselves up. They're going to be self starters, motivate, pick themselves up when they fail or lose a game, whatever it is. Then I think you built a culture that fits him as a coach. And so all those things make me optimistic about what he's already building, in addition to how he's building out his staff as well, which we can talk more about.
Hmm.
Because those hires are really important for somebody who's a first time head coach in college.
Yeah, and it seemed like we've I think officially, unofficially, officially now gotten Arkansas assistant Chuck Martin to join his staff. That's been a little bit in the news the last 24 hours or so. Your thoughts on him? I know you're pretty high. If he's bringing in guys like Darius Acuff, then bring him on.
So one of the things, just quick disclosure here, Craig, that I've had to embrace after doing this podcast for a couple of years, is that I'm a little pettier than I'd like to admit. That is something that has come up, especially when we're talking about Duke or NC State. So the fact that we took Cal's top assistant from Arkansas, and Calipari's got to be fuming. He's got to be upset about this. I love the petty factor on that piece of it.
Yeah.
And I kind of hope that we get paired with Arkansas in the SEC Challenge and go from there with that. But in terms of the hire itself, that's a home run. I mean, he knocked it out of the park
Yep.
in terms of the first out of the family hire that you're making is somebody who, from the recruiting perspective, but also it sounds like his ability to build relationships with players, with families, and then his just care for them, but also understanding of the game. He checks all the boxes. And so to
Yeah.
have somebody he's been in college basketball a long time, he's worked at a lot of places, not just with Calipari, but he goes all the way back with Cal, I think, to Memphis. And he was in that Final Four when Carolina played Kansas. We won't bring up that result, but Kansas Memphis in the championship game, that was the Roy Kansas Jayhawk sticker game. And so he's been in big stages and he's been seen just about everything as it relates to college basketball and the changes, right? And been able to navigate that really well. So I'm very high on bringing him in as the lead assistant. I thought that's a
Hmm.
fantastic move. And I think speaks to Michael Malone's ability, his connections, his ability to maintain some of these relationships. They hadn't coached together since Manhattan, which was 25 years ago or something, maybe more. So
Hmm.
the fact that Chuck Martin wants to leave Arkansas with somebody who he's worked with and knows really
Yeah.
well in
It's
Calipari to
big.
come to UNC to work with Michael Malone, yeah, it's a huge deal. So that
Yep.
really big deal right off the bat in terms of building his staff. And then I think retaining UNC guys like Pat Sullivan and Sean May, which also maybe not official yet, but seems like that's the direction that's
Right.
going. They're
And
very
shout out
involved.
Hoots.
Eric Hoots as well, who's the um, do everything glue guy, right, of the
Yep.
program. So that continuity, I think, is important on multiple levels, just navigating this change and transition for the current players who are also in flux, but also just be able to roll what Carolina basketball is historically into the future where we want to take it with a new coach who's coming from the outside perspective. So, yeah, so I think, I mean, in terms of the way you hit the ground running, that was a huge hire. There's talk of other staff members that they're looking at that would also be big pulls if they can make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolutely strong start. Arkansas was one of my top teams that I enjoyed watching, and it wasn't hate watching. I wasn't pulling for them because of, Calipari, but at the same time, I enjoyed and respected what they had built. And ultimately make to the Sweet 16 and, put on a good run and run into a hot Arizona team. But they were fun, and so I'm hopeful that Martin can build something alongside Tanner and see what we can kind of pull together quickly, at the very last minute,
Hmm.
getting the head coach ahead of the portal. So I think the upside here is like I'm energized again, and I think that's hopefully what a lot of fans are feeling. And it a little bit of irony that I'm energized because we have like three players on our team right now. If you
Yeah.
haven't been following the transfer market and who's, put their names in and who hasn't, we'll give you a quick rundown. And this is not anything new nowadays. We're used to this. A few years ago, it was, oh man, so and so's leaving. Oh, someone else is leaving. What does it mean for the program? Nothing. It's not. It's about the money. It's about all of that, the higher level stuff. And so, um, graduated, obviously, Seth Trimble. Officially, unofficially declaring for the NBA, Caleb Wilson. Your portalers over the last few days, Isaiah Dennis, Derek Dixon, Kyan Evans, Jonathan Powell, Zayden Hyde, Jaden Young, and James Brown. Returning Luca, that was kind of buried in a little bit of the fast news cycle the other day, but um, after Malone signed, Luca did say, "Yeah, I want to come work under this guy," and hopefully that's going to be a good fit. Both professional ballers of sorts, so maybe it's a better fit for Luca than Hubert was. Who knows? I think there was a little bit of struggle on the Luca side to adapt to the college game. Now he's got a year under his belt. That's going to be kind of maybe a storyline to watch and what his role is going forward. Then you have the unknowns right now, which are two biggies in Henry Vessar. Um, there was talk about him being a first round borderline pick, but I think he received some feedback that he may not be exactly where he thought. Um, Based on that, maybe he comes back. Jaron Stevenson, obviously, Chapel Hill local guy who originally went to Alabama, came back to Carolina because he wanted to play for UNC Chapel Hill, and I can't imagine that he wants to go elsewhere. We'll see what happens there. And then you got your freshmen, the traditional freshmen, the traditional first years in Dylan Mingo and Maximo Adams. So that's what we're looking at right now in terms of the roster. And so, yeah, Michael Malone has his work cut out for him. His first priority was meeting with the team um, to try to avoid the old Calipari. Let me go meet with the team. There is no team. There is a very minimal team. But you saw some of those guys hanging out yesterday. Derek made it very clear that he's open to returning to Carolina. I think it was just a matter of who the coach was going to be, and that was just the reality of the situation. Same with Isaiah Dennis and some of these other guys. So um, the portal's wide open. What's your take on? We can jump into some of the names that have been in the portal. A lot of ACC guys, even Juke Harris is
Hmm.
someone we have our eye on. Will Paul McNeil Jr. be the first NC State to Carolina transfer and pull a Vin Allen Lubin? I don't know, man. It's all guessing right now. But what are some things you would like to see in terms of who comes back to Carolina, and um, how would Coach Adams build his roster?
Well, I like Michael Malone's approach. I also like the fact that he goes by Michael, and it's important to call Michael, not Mike. As a Jonathan, not a John, I respect that.
Right.
Number one. Number two, I think the way that he has come in and said that was on the Carolina Insider podcast with Jones and Adam, where he talked about the three things that he needed to do, and that was build the staff, it was recruit the current team, and then go into the portal from there. So he's doing great work with the staff, and I'm sure there are conversations already happening with the current players. They have to decide who do you want to keep. So it was me. I would be prioritizing Henry Vasar number one.
Hmm.
I don't think I think that's a consensus that everyone
For sure.
wants Henry back. The fact that the information feedback he got on the draft is not consensus first round also helps Carolina's case. You can pay him a lot of money. The market for centers is just out of control. The market in general is still unregulated. So the
Yep.
expectation for guys like Henry is somewhere in the $4 million range.
Hmm.
And they would, I imagine they would not hesitate to make him a competitive offer because he is the foundation of next year's team if he decides
Yep.
not to go through the draft process. I also think it's a great, if he decides to do that, playing for Michael Malone is very valuable for his pro development.
Hmm.
He's not Nikola Jokic, but
Yeah, he
as
is.
somebody who's who's a skilled big guy who has good vision, he can be used as more of an offensive hub to facilitate the offense more, and you're going to see more off-ball movement as the foundation of what they do offensively. So I
Yeah.
think it fits his style really well. I also think the focus on toughness and defensive rebounding and physicality, those are
Hmm.
some of the things that Henry needs to continue to work on. And so through the strength training program with Malone, but also just the way that they teach these things, there's a lot of upside for him in coming back. Not to mention the fact that he's going to get paid more to come back than he would to be a fringe first round, second round pick.
Yeah.
That's number one is Henry. Number two, I would say, is Derek Dixon. Um, I mean, I'd say 2A, 2B, Derek Dixon, Jared Stevenson.
Yeah.
Those are my
I'm with
three in
you.
terms of the core that I'd want to bring back. Derek, um, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he'd be the starting point guard on next year's team, but he definitely is somebody who can play starter minutes. He showed that this year. He's going to continue to grow and develop. I love his IQ. I love his. He's also seems to fit Malone's style of a high IQ guy, the toughness. And we talk about toughness. We talk a lot about the physical toughness, but Derek, time and time again, hit big shots, made big
Yeah.
plays. That's the type of toughness you need from that spot as well. So I think he's somebody that, yes, he's not an elite athlete, but he brings so many other intangibles and he's only going to get better. I would definitely prioritize bringing him back, and you can pair him with some other guys in the backcourt and kind of figure out what that's going to look like in terms of the pecking order. And then Stevenson as a Eric Hoots on the roster, the do everything guy, the glue guy. Um, I mean, he really grew. He showed this year. He proved a lot this year, I think,
Hmm.
because he was willing to do the little things. He was willing to do the not glamorous things, just to get in there and rebound and be physical. And I think he can still do more of that. But he is so versatile. And is he a slam dunk pro prospect? No, it's not like having Caleb Wilson out there. But he is somebody that's going to be invaluable to the core of a team, whether he's a starting four or whether he's a do it all reserve off the bench. You got to bring him back. So that's what I would say the three core guys from the team and then go from there. And if I was building the team, I think those would be my three. And I'd start to look at the portal. In addition to, I want both the freshmen coming in. I want Dylan Mingo and Maxi Adams in the fold. I think they can contribute right away. To what degree, we'll see. But I definitely want both of them on next year's team.
Yeah, completely with you on all that. Vessar is going to be the motor if he comes back around which this team is built. Jaron was great. Would love to see him return. And yeah, I think Derek, like you mentioned, the clutch shots that he had. I mean, under a minute, I want the ball in that guy's hands, and I can only imagine it's going to get more confident and better. And whether it's a shot or the pass to Seth Trimble in the corner to Barry Duke at home, I mean, coordinating that play. He feels like the kind of QB quarterback that you could need. He's, maybe not Kendall Marshall level passing and such, but he is a good passer. He has good floor vision and court control. So would love to see him come back. Some of these other guys in the portal just from the ACC, Juke Harris, Wake Forest, Marcus Burton, Notre Dame, Paul McNeil Jr., and actually Matt Abel from NC State, Donnie Freeman from Syracuse, Kaminia from Duke, pass, Faru from Louisville, and then Ndongo from Georgia Tech. So, I mean, these are big names, and again, this is what we're used to. Flory Badunga out at Kansas, even. You want to talk about a big man. If we lose Vessar, are we going after Flory?
I think we'll be too late on Flory. He's already got a top four, three of which are Duke, Michigan, and St. John's. I can't remember the fourth
Gross.
team, but it feels like a Duke and Michigan battle for Flory.
Let's go,
So
Dusty May.
yeah, we may see Flory before too long, just not in Carolina blue. Of that list, Juke Harris would be my number one. Not just me. I think a
Phenomenal.
lot of people
Phenomenal.
would hope to get him. He grew up a Duke fan, so we'll throw that out there. I don't think they're heavily involved yet. He's going out to Michigan this weekend to visit, so we need to definitely get in the mix quickly and decide, are you really targeting him? But if you look at those three guys, Dixon, Stevenson, and Basar, if that's your core, then you need a lead guard, a scoring guard. And that's really what Harris is. You need somebody who's going to be that alpha scorer in the backcourt to complement Henry in the front court. I think it would be a perfect pairing. He can play two, he can play three, good size at 6'7". So that would be my number one hope. He may be hard to get because everybody's after him. Uh, some of the other guys you mentioned from the ACC, I think that would really be it in terms of what I'd be going after. I love
Mhm.
Donnie Freeman. Uh, he has had some injury issues, but I love him as a player. He played really well against us in Chapel Hill. I like his versatility. Somebody that if you could convince him to come in and just battle out with Stevenson for that time at the four, that would give you a lot of versatility. I don't know how realistic that would be, though. Something to
Mhm.
look for would be outside the ACC with Martin coming in from Arkansas. Does he bring anybody with him? He was
Mhm.
really big in recruiting several of their guys, including somebody like Carter Knox. So, do we finally get a member of the Knox family after missing on Kevin Knox years ago now, which worked out really well for us because Cam Johnson came in instead.
Mhm.
Um, but is Carter Knox somebody that ends up coming over? Um, he's somebody that like I wouldn't say he's not a Juke Harris, right, in terms of going to be a main guy in your offense, but I think he's a good connective piece on the wing where he can be productive, average around 8 points or so a game, can do a few different things, shoots it pretty well from the outside. So I think that'll be a positive if he's going to be part of your rotation. So that's something to look out for as well. So there's a couple of names that are starting to pop up. I'm sure there will be more as this thing continues to turn. And then, like you said, with the international scene, Malone has great connections there with Nikola Jokic's agent being one
Mhm.
of the key guys um, in Europe, especially with Serbian players. So that's something to keep an eye on too, is international players that you might be able to bring in as well.
The pipeline for the NBA runs through Chapel Hill now, internationally and locally.
Yeah, we'll see, but
I'll slow it down. I'll roll it back a little. Let me get to like the first game that he coaches first, and then we'll see
yeah.
where that conversation goes.
But I think if you bring in a Chuck Martin, you're you're saying we're going to take big swings after high school recruits. Like I think to me that's part of what you're saying going forward, right? Dylan
Yep.
Mingo has a lot of upside. He has NBA potential. He also has a brother who's in the portal, Caden Mingo from Penn State. That would be something to look for as well, assuming that he recommits and comes to UNC. But he's not a Caleb Wilson. And granted, I don't know that there are that many Caleb Wilsons, right? But I do think this sets up for the next year's class. They've already reached out to CJ Rosser, who's the number one player in the class. He's from North Carolina, Northern Nash High School. So again, I think they're moving that direction of wanting to get the top talent, which is what you want to do. Top talent from high school. You want to get top talent out of the portal and get the top guys from the international ranks. That's been the Tommy Lloyd way. And I think that is the model for Malone as well. So I'm optimistic with this first hire and then whoever else they bring in, which again, they have some big names that they have their eyes on. That all seems positive too. So we'll see. The next few weeks are going to tell us a lot for next year, and then we'll learn a little bit more, I think, too, of what their philosophy really is building a team going forward. Year one is going to be one data point, as we saw with Hugher Davis. We
Hmm.
had much better sense by year four, year five of how
Yeah.
things were going to play out. But we'll know a little bit more here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a wild time. I think I've adopted your vantage point after this many years that I am now excited for the portal and I get hyped for it. The first year that it was all kind of happening, we got Harrison and Cormac. I was excited for those guys, but I was like, it just doesn't feel like I'm gonna care about this team. It gets hard when they're not a 4 year player, right? We're so used to that. And now it's like, nah, give me my guy for a year, and I know by November I'm gonna be all in. And you saw what Harrison and Cormac did in their year at 2024. Very close loss to Alabama in the Sweet 16, where Hubert almost gets them to the Elite Eight. Um, so yeah, it's a very exciting time over the next couple of weeks. We will see what happens. I have really high, probably unrealistic hopes for who we get and how this roster looks next year. Um, I will not be betting on any of those hopes. We'll just hold off on that and see what Michael Malone does. But this is why the Tanner move last year was so important, getting a GM on board who's now got a year under his belt and is now in a position to work with a different staff and one that has a lot of experience in this now. So we'll see where we go from here. But I'm hyped and I'm excited. The energy is back. The Friday morning after that VCU loss was one of the lowest points of how I'd felt as a UNC fan. Probably near the low of the 2016 championship game day after. That's a different kind of low though, where like you made it to the promised land and you missed by, just 4.7 seconds. But after that VCU loss was like, here we go again. Like that was kind of when and you and I talked about this. That was kind of when I think you, not to speak for you, but kind of tipped like something's got to change. We were very patient with the Hubert stuff and the ups and downs. It was always about the consistency. And I think what this has showed me the last 2 weeks is that the culture and the program just needed a little bit of an energy change. Hubert did a lot of really good things for the program, cares about Carolina immensely. Um, and I hope everybody has a respect and appreciation for what he's done and what he'll hopefully continue to do um, around the program. But yeah, that day after was tough, but I'm re-energized. We're back on the pod. Um, what are you looking forward to most in the next couple weeks and even months as we lead up to November?
Oh yeah, just speaking about the Hubert part of it real quick. I mean, I did feel I felt this actually because I've been very positive on Hubert overall over the years. Even going to this year, it was okay. This is definitely a make or break
Yep.
year. Then they start off the way they do with the non-conference slate and in that Florida State game and start the year 12-1. And okay, like maybe he can get some momentum here, turn the corner. They obviously go on the West Coast trip, lose both games, and that's where I was like, I just this just feels like more of the same, right? It's the
Yeah.
losing big leads. It's coming out flat inexplicably at
hmm
times.
Only playing
Um,
20 minutes, whether it's the first or second half, the number
yeah,
of like comebacks or leads that were blown just was way too inconsistent.
consistently inconsistent, but capable of some peaks and also capable of valleys too. So, yeah, the VCU game really was like a microcosm of the things that went wrong. Not just during this year, but previous years as well, in terms of losing big leads. I will say though that it's not just a Hubert Davis or a UNC issue. Obviously, we saw Duke lose a 19-point lead too. I mean, you see
hmm
that with college basketball where there's going to be big swings now. Um, but the way that it happened was very predictable, and it felt like we had seen this so many times before. So I was very much on board with now's the time. Go ahead and
hmm
make this move. There were a lot of sliding doors moments during the season.
hmm
Caleb getting
hmm
hurt. If he doesn't get hurt, we
hmm
probably are a higher seed. We probably don't
Yep.
lose in that first round and maybe move to the second weekend. You never know what Caleb was going to be capable of. That to me is the biggest point I'm sad about with the season is not
Oh
getting to
my
see
gosh.
him in the
Yeah.
postseason or getting to see him just really finish the season and finish the experience as a Carolina player. He wanted it so badly, as much as Bryce Johnson, I would think. So, but it was the right move in my decision, in my opinion, to move on. The one thing that I had issue with was it came out in terms of the process that they asked him to put together a presentation or a plan for next season before they made the final decision. I didn't get that because to me, you already have an idea of what you have seen what Hubert Davis, the tenure of Hubert Davis is and what the focus is going to be. So what at that point, it was like, just make a decision. Don't put this guy through having to give a
hmm
presentation.
hmm
You have enough data here to make a decision. So just make the decision. If you have to
Yep.
rally the boosters and get information from them of will they support it, fine. But I think at that point, to me, it's like make a decision, don't put him through more. Don't extend this out. more than you need to. So that was the piece that I didn't agree with. I didn't think that was fair to him, unless you really felt like he was going to have a plan where, okay, we're going to be able to keep you. But to put him through something extra
Yeah.
after everything, all the ups and downs of the season and the last couple of years, that didn't feel right. But the decision I'm definitely behind. And I do think, to your point, there is new energy. There's a fresh edge and optimism and possibility. So I think for me, the next couple of weeks is the possibilities, is going through the portal, possibilities, the hopes of the players that we hope to get that ultimately sign elsewhere. We go through that process every year. The other part that a lot of us fall into, including us, is getting way too high on certain players based on their previous stats elsewhere. So I'm
Never.
going to try to temper that a little bit more,
Yeah.
and not get fly too high on some of these guys that come in, because you just don't really know until you see it all come together in the new setting, especially now with a new coach, a new system. Everything is going to be new, a new
Yep.
staff. Um, so there's just a lot of unknowns, but I am excited. I think there's real possibility here. Um, and I hope that well, with the investment, he's going to get time. So regardless of how year one goes, there's going to be a year two. I would expect there to be a year three, unless Michael Malone does so well that he wants to go back to the NBA, and then we kind of get to that point. But
Right.
um, yeah, I'm excited. I'm hopeful we can get um, like a alpha score in the portal is what I
Yeah.
hope for in the next couple of weeks, to pair with Vasar coming back. Those would be the big things,
Yep.
and then try to get a couple of these other core guys that we talked about, and then start adding pieces around them.
Yeah, I love it. One of the things I want to point out before we wrap up and do our point out, which obviously is to Coach Malone for this episode, for coming on board, but the fact that the part of the Hubert angle of deciding when to let him go that was very complicated was that he had Roy's blessing, and it's a family uh, tie, and so as much as Michael Malone is kind of tangential family and going to be adopted as such, if things don't go well in however many years, they're not gonna pause. It's gonna be a plan in place, and I don't think we'll go through the, oh, Hubert's back for one more season. Let's just prove it. Hubert's back. I mean, that was just being patient. I think a little bit muddled by trying to do your due diligence on not doing someone wrong, or the changing landscape was more complicated than it had ever been. And so there's so many factors at play, including that family tie, that I think that's why it felt so long and drawn out to people season after season. Some people still wanted him there, some people didn't, and then it became overwhelmingly uh, kind of more negative after the VCU loss, and that's the I think what tipped everybody over, not everybody, a lot of folks over the edge, and obviously the athletic department to making that move. But I think if things don't go well, God forbid, that they immediately, you know, quickly make a decision and say, all right, next in line, and we navigate it from there. But um, I have high hopes that he does so well that he tries to go back to the NBA, and I mean that's sure, that sounds great if we bring the program to that point. Um, but I'm hopeful he'll stick around for a while. We'll see.
I'm too. I mean, I think that could be a possibility that he sticks around,
Yeah, I
because
think so.
things that he talked about being excited about were developing younger players, developing. He named your favorite age of a player, 17, Craig. Because maybe we're gonna have
Cooper Flag,
the
did
next
he
Cooper
did he turn
Flag.
18
Yeah,
yet?
yeah. Um, but his point being that he was excited about working with folks earlier in the process. And it really does seem like he's a teacher, developer at
Yeah,
heart, who loves basketball and imparts that to his players. So that could energize him in a new way. And maybe it is something that he falls in love with it in a way that keeps him in that position. We'll see. But you're right. I think if nothing else, the fact that they're going beyond the family and that's not limiting your search is really important, because now you can go after the best coaches available, and that's who UNC should have coaching their team,
yep,
is the best coaches, not just the best within
yeah,
alumni who played at Carolina. So
yep.
that's a positive going forward, because yeah, ideally it works out, but if it doesn't, then you go back through an open search again and try to land that next big name up and coming star coach, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot to look forward to if you're a UNC fan right now. I think a lot of folks are really high on this, and having the energy back is really nice. So, with that in mind, we're into season 4 of the podcast now. Good to be back with everybody, and we're gonna do our best to stay more consistent as things settle down for us, and we kind of navigate into this new era together with everybody as a fan base. So. We look forward to being out here a lot more. We're going to be following the portal news, obviously the roster construction in general, who's returning, who's going from UNC last year. We'll keep an eye as things come out about scheduling, about rules changes that get announced, about settlements and the NCAA. Who knows what's going to go on? But I feel like the offseason has a lot of times kept us busier than the season itself. You can get into a nice rhythm when you have a schedule, and the off season is kind of you hear something and 12 hours later you got to kind of pop on and give it a conversation. So I'm going to be pinging you, Jonathan, but shout out to Coach Malone, point out to him. Good to be back on with you. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Not for me. Yeah, excited about Michael Malone and Chapel Hill. We are moving forward, see what happens, and just excited to see all this take shape and go from here. And yeah, great to be back on. Great to be talking Carolina basketball, the new era, the next, I guess, era of Carolina basketball, and see what happens.
Time to get after it, Jack.
That's fantastic way to end that press conference. We've got work to do, Jack. We've got work to do, Michael, and excited to see him.
I need a shirt.
Happens.
I need a shirt. Yeah. Thanks for being back on. Good speaking with everybody, and we will talk to y'all soon. Go Heels.
Go Heels.